It is Combine Week in Indianapolis, Donnie's favorite week on the NFL calendar and Donnie's favorite city in the United States. So as it continues, the prospects finally on the field working out yesterday, running fast, lifting weights, going around cones. All is great with the drills that we are seeing in Indianapolis, but as DRS knows very well, it's not just about the workouts or the prospects in Indianapolis. It's about the NFL all being in one place, and a ton of news coming out. That includes DRS. Even this morning, our breaking Matthew Stafford daily update from Diana Rossini of The Athletics. The Rams are set to meet with Matthew Stafford at their facility in person today regarding his future. The Raiders and Giants, the two front runners perhaps, to lure Matthew Stafford from L.A., have discussed a 2-year contract for Stafford that includes $90 to $100 million guaranteed. So that, your daily Matthew Stafford update. And Donnie, maybe we get a decision as early as this afternoon about Stafford's future in Los Angeles.
It would be great to see because we want to see where Matthew Stafford goes and also understand the whys of it here and why he's leaving Los Angeles. Let's understand something here. You see the contracts that's going to be, expected to be 2 years with close to $100 million guaranteed. And I say, all right, very good quarterback, Super Bowl champion, maybe when it's all said and done, going to be a Hall of Famer. I get it. But the two teams offering up that money doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Understand this. Tom Brady, love you. You brought in a head coach that should be a good steward for that franchise. You have a depleted roster here and also looking at 3 really good football teams in your own division. So this is the perfect time to completely tank out, get your young quarterback on the roster, and in 3 to 4 years, when those other teams might be on the come down, you are on the come up at this point. So here's what Tom Brady you're going to do. You'll get Matthew Stafford. Great. Hey, he threw 50 touchdowns last year. No, he didn't. He threw 20 last year. So what are the upside expectations for the Vegas Raiders? 7, 8 wins, missed the playoffs, and $50 million guaranteed to a player who's going to hurt your draft stock and not give you the ability to get your future quarterback. Let's look at the New York Giants and play it out the exact same way. Joe Shane never should be in charge of the 2025 roster. He is in complete self-preservation mode, so he's going like, hey, we were really bad last year. If I get a good quarterback, we win 2 more games, I can go to Mr. Mara and say, hey, I should be back next year, and the same thing with Brian Dable. The Giants paying the quarterback $100 million over the next 2 years so they don't get their future quarterback either. Make it make sense because it doesn't.
Donnie, it doesn't make sense for any party. The Raiders or the Giants, as you just laid out. For the Rams, I'm not so sure what the thought is right now. By all reports, they're comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo. All right, Sean McVay is enough of an offensive genius that maybe it can work. But the Rams with Matthew Stafford has been fully healthy in 3 of his 4 years in Los Angeles. Have won a Super Bowl, have made it to the postseason all 3 years, and were really the only team last year in the playoffs to put a scare into our eventual Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. You have a young and promising defense that should improve year over year, even if Cooper Kupp is traded. You have so much promising young talent on the offensive side of the football, and you have the best offensive play caller still in the sport. It should have been very simple this offseason. Let's run it back. Let's move even further past the divisional round. Stafford, in your final couple years in the NFL, will get you back to the pinnacle of this sport. For Matthew Stafford himself, he has played in a dome the entirety of his 16 years in the NFL. Now, Vegas, of course, still a warm weather city and inside. Why would you ever want to go to the New York Giants? And outside of the weather, Donnie, Matthew Stafford might have 2 years tops remaining in his NFL career, about to embark on year number 17 at 37 years old. You want to contend, you would think, at the very tail end of your career at the highest level of the sport, even if he is added to the Raiders or the Giants. That team's not going to be expected to win more than 7, 8 games at the absolute most. The Raiders and the Giants, even with the addition of Matthew Stafford, will not be considered a playoff threat.
There are 2 things you can do at the end of your career. Matthew Stafford's clearly choosing one. Hey, I got my ring. I'm not ring chasing anymore. I just want money. I will go to a horrible franchise like the Raiders if they'll pay me more than the Rams. I will go to an even worse organization in the New York Giants if they pay me more than the Los Angeles Rams. And also think about this. Like, well, Matthew Stafford, is he ever worth $50 million? In the right situation, yes. Oh, look, Lamar Jackson retired. You know what? That's your spot, Matthew Stafford. Chance to win a ring. Oh, Jalen Hurts decided, you know what? Had enough fun. MVP of the Super Bowl. I'm still young in my career. I don't want to get hurt. I have other business ventures. Then you can be with the Philadelphia Eagles, and them paying you $50 million makes some sense. It doesn't make sense to me because, again, the 30 for 30 on ESPN that we might have in the next couple years on how Stafford actually got out of Los Angeles is going to be phenomenal for an up-and-coming team that he's already won a Super Bowl with the best play caller in Los Angeles and in a dome says, you know what? I want to go to some of the worst teams in the NFL to finish out my career in style. I still can't comprehend it, but I love watching the car crash.
I will never comprehend it if it actually happens. And Donnie, we had joked, right? It seemed like rumor and speculation maybe started by his wife on a podcast. Now it certainly has legs, and there is definitely a disconnect in L.A. between the Rams, the front office, and Matthew Stafford. We'll see if it can be smoothed over this afternoon in that reported in-person meeting. But don't just take Donnie and my word for it. Look at what the odds market is saying. The Rams opened as a 32-1 price to win Super Bowl 60. That has moved back by $10. And Matthew Stafford is still under contract and on the roster in Los Angeles. 42-1, the price for the Rams. Okay, so did the Raiders move up the board? Are they a playoff contender? How about the Giants? No, there are 3 teams around the NFL with a 200-1 price, all tied for the longest and worst odds to win a Lombardi Trophy this upcoming season. The Titans, the Raiders, and the Giants. Obviously, that price would get slightly shorter if Matthew Stafford were to join either organization, but not a ton.
No, and again, it's wild to think that these are the 2 teams. And also, wouldn't you just be better off if you're the Giants? Just then sign Aaron Rodgers, draft your quarterback, and spin him out after a year. And understand this, too. You're going to have to pay $100 million over 2 years. And also, you're giving up draft compensation and high draft compensation at the same time for these 2 teams that need as many draft picks as they can keep.
Well said, DRS. Very well said. The NFL never stops. We'll talk more about the National Football League next. The NFL headlines continue to pour in during Combine Week in Indianapolis. Any other Matthew Stafford updates throughout these 3 hours? I guess on a Football Friday, continue here on the early line. As we shared in our opening segment, big news yesterday in Kansas City in 2 spots. Travis Kelce is not walking away from football. Travis Kelce is back for the Chiefs in 2025. And Kansas City is going to place the franchise tag on their Pro Bowl right guard in Trey Smith, one of the most consistent members of that offensive line this year for the Chiefs. They will tag Trey Smith, which would be a lot to pay a guy under the franchise tag value for a team in Kansas City that has to navigate their salary cap space smartly this offseason. But, Donnie, they're really placing the tag on Trey Smith to hopefully work out a long-term extension at a point this offseason.
You know what? The tag is interesting to me because there is some give and take around the NFL. And the premise of the tag I do agree with. It's supposed to be for we just can't lose our best players because they just want to leave and this is our last hook in. But the NFLPA is like, all right, if you're going to do that, which every player hates, you're going to pay them at the top of the pay scale for that year. It's interesting to me, like the next CBA, like what happens if it would work out almost like an NBA contract, Ben, where it's like, hey, no, we like Trey Smith. We're going to place the tag, which means a 4-year guaranteed contract at, if it's $25 million a year, give or take, it's 4 years, $100 million fully guaranteed. The players would love to get the tag because that's the highest of the position at the time and extending it over the next 3 years at that point. It just hurts with the franchise tag because Trey Smith, understand this. He looks at that and goes, man, that's a lot of money. But then his agent goes, yeah, imagine if you hit free agency and I quadrupled that price for you. This is why players get upset with it and teams need it. But understand this. I don't think Kansas City is operating as if they were like Cincinnati. Like, you're going to take it because that's the contract under the law of the CBA that you get here. They want to sign him long-term, and it makes sense. You can't let that guy with this much money on the open market be a free agent because you look at the Chiefs, right around level on the salary cap. There are teams with over $100 million that will blow him out of the water, and he'll never get a chance to come back to Kansas City. So from a business perspective, it's just the way it gets down. They want him long-term, but they're not going to lose him right away. That's for sure.
They're not going to let him test the waters. They're not going to go out and have to match what a high number is because the final update on that NFL News and Notes headline board, the salary cap officially set to increase by nearly $24 million year over year. All to say, NFL teams will have the wiggle room if they want to pay somebody like Trey Smith. And first and foremost, Donnie, priority number one probably this offseason for KC, bolster up that O-line. So what happened to them in the Super Bowl against the Eagles does not continue to happen, which was their point of emphasis after their first Super Bowl loss to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers now about 3-4 years ago. And then point number two, you tag Trey Smith with the understanding that paying him $23.5 million for that one-year deal is not good business. You want to agree to a deal, even if it's in the same ballpark annually based on that average salary, so that you can maneuver with signing bonuses up front, as we have shared, and your cap hit is not nearly as large as that franchise tag value would be. You would expect to do that. They have until July 15th to agree to a long-term extension. And Donnie, last year, 9 guys tagged, either franchise or transitional tag around the NFL. 8 of the 9 agreed to a long-term extension. The only guy who did not, Cincinnati's T. Higgins, which is why Donnie is always correctly skeptical of what the Bengals are going to have to say. Elsewhere in the state of Ohio, Myles Garrett is not open to a contract extension to remain in Cleveland. He is remaining steadfast in that trade request that he wants to play for a Super Bowl contender. And Donnie, who can fault him? The Browns seem very far from that currently.
Yes, and both sides can win here. What I mean by that is Cleveland, whether or not Myles Garrett is on the roster the next 2 to 3 years, they are not winning a Super Bowl here. Myles Garrett said, look, I put in a lot of hard work as one of the best defensive players. It's not working out. I don't like the direction here. We can both win. You trade me to another team. You pick up 2 first-round picks. You can move on, and you shed my large salary that I have now, and I'm not seeking an extension. But it's understandable for the Cleveland Browns when they say, Ben, look, you're the best at your position. We can't give you up here at this point. We don't even know if 2 first-round picks even makes up for the loss that you're going to have at defensive end. But if you draft a guy like Abdul Carter in the draft, you move on from Myles Garrett, get 2 first-round picks, doesn't that sound like a good game plan for the future to restart that team and get the quarterback of your choice over the next year or two? That makes the most sense. This one is not going to get fixed early. I don't expect him to get traded by the actual draft himself because Cleveland wants him. This might be one of those like, oh, no, it's July 31st. He hasn't shown up to OTAs, worked out with us, or he's even picking up his phone. We better start calling around to see if we can now get those 2 first-round picks for him.
I kind of agree with DRS in terms of that timeline. It could be played out. More NFL news next. We're going to talk a little bit about the prospects at the NFL Combine because the workouts have started and the interviews with the media continue. It's been the defensive players first, those defensive linemen, some linebackers on the field, running fast, lifting heavy weights yesterday. We also heard from the defensive backs and the tight ends in front of the microphone and at the podium yesterday in Indy. That includes our reigning Heisman winner in the sport and a guy listed as a defensive back in Indy this week. That would be Colorado's 2-way superstar in Travis Hunter. Of course, that was a main theme of the conversations with Hunter yesterday. What are you hearing from NFL teams about your positional value in the National Football League? Do you believe you can continue to play both ways at an incredibly high level in the NFL? Basically, he was asked about playing both positions in the National Football League and had this to say, DRS, quote, "They say nobody has ever done it the way I do it. I tell them I'm just different." And who's really to fault Travis Hunter in that line of thinking? Again, he is listed as a DB at the Combine, meaning he will go through the workouts and the preparations as a defensive back in Indianapolis this week. It does not mean he only has to play as a DB in the National Football League.
Yes, and by the way, I love his moxie. I know he's done it in college and in high school, but hear me out. You're not doing it in the pros 100% of the time. You won't make it. You won't last, trust me, and there's a reason why nobody has done that before. But understand this. Right. If I do draft him, he is an elite player on offense and defense. I want him at the cornerback position. I want him locking down the best wide receivers in football. But you know what, Ben, on offense? We're going to have packages in place on passing situations that we can use as talents. That makes the most sense. So I understand when people say, well, he can do it. And, Kevin and I were arguing on Moneyline yesterday. Well, did you see what he did at a high Division I level? Understand that. Those are 17, 18, 19, and 20-year-old players there. These are grown men. And also, you check his stature in the position he plays. He's not a middle linebacker at 6'3", 225. It's like, okay, I'll play fullback and linebacker, and we'll just go toe-to-toe. You're at a position with quick twitch where you must have great energy the entire game. He's going to play 140 snaps in an NFL football game, defending your best wideout and getting locked up or possibly locked up by the best cornerback on the other side. No, use him efficiently, which means all the time on defensive corner makes perfect sense. 10 to 15 snaps on offense in a game makes perfect sense. That'll keep him healthy for his career. I would love to see him play 100% of the snaps after week 5. Hey, man, looks like he's a little lethargic, or my hamstrings are starting to tighten up at this point. Don't do that to the kid. Come on.
Absolutely, DRS. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. In terms of his positional value, Travis Hunter is an elite, and I mean an elite, lockdown, shutdown cornerback. In college football, they would hardly even look at his half of the field. They would hardly ever target the wide receiver that Travis Hunter was guarding, and he still led the Big 12 this past year in pass deflections and pass breakups. That's how good Travis Hunter is as a corner. He is a great wide receiver. Is he a first-round pick solely as a wide receiver? Probably not. Did he rank atop a lot of the college football numbers and stats because of Colorado's very pass-heavy offense with a quarterback who's going to be a top 5, top 10 pick? Yes. Travis Hunter is going to be elite in the NFL as a defensive player. But Travis is also correct. Nobody has done it like he has. We had not seen a two-way superstar play at that level to win a Heisman Trophy on both sides of the ball, averaging nearly 140 snaps per game for the Buffaloes this past year, ever in the history of CFB. We have seen people do it. We have never seen people do it at the elite level that Travis Hunter did in 2024. But Donnie, again, he can be a top 5 pick. Frankly, he is going to be a top 5 pick more than likely. He will be an odds-on hefty favorite to be a top 5 selection at the end of April. But where he presents the best value is at the cornerback position. A plus 850 price for Travis Hunter right now, third shortest number to be that first overall pick. Cam Ward at minus 150, still the hefty odds-on favorite. His price getting better yesterday, despite the good injury news about Abdul Carter, the stress reaction in his right foot, not requiring surgery. So why did Cam Ward's price get a couple of cents better? Donnie, a lot of rumors starting to swirl yesterday. The Giants seem fully in on the Matthew Stafford sweepstakes, but perhaps the Giants fully in on making a run up the draft board to potentially have that first overall pick. As we have looked at these odds, the Titans were a minus 360 favorite just yesterday to be the team to draft first overall. Now it's a minus 220 price on Tennessee and a 2-1 number on the Giants. Their price getting shorter by nearly $2.
Smart. They get Matthew Stafford. I laugh at them and say, all right, they're not going to be a problem for the next 5 to 7 years. If they do get Cam Ward, understand this, like the evolution of an NFL franchise, right? Drafting Daniel Jones, we all laughed at that. Like, they drafted this guy, that's going to be the future. And then they doubled down on it by giving him a big contract. Hilarious calamity in New York. But I don't think anybody's going to blame Joe Shane, Brian Dable, and Mr. Mara by going out and saying, you know what? It's going to be Cam. That's our guy. Cam Ward, he's going to be our starter. And if it doesn't work out in 4 to 5 years, not a single person is going to go back and say, well, you should have drafted Abdul Carter. You should have drafted Travis Hunter. Like, no, the right pick in the draft is when you're bad, even if you have to use capital to go up, get the quarterback you believe is going to be your future. Because without a young quarterback playing on a cheap salary for the first 4 to 5 years, what are you actually doing when you're a bad franchise? So that's why they should drop out of the Stafford race. But if we are looking at that draft board, once again, at least the odds at the FanDuel Sportsbook, they are correct here. Those first 3 guys are the 3 best players in this draft, and I think that's exactly the way they should go 1, 2, and 3.
Interesting. Because both of the teams right now that have the first and second overall pick, the Titans and the Browns, are in desperate need of a quarterback. We'll see exactly what happens. But I think Donnie is spot on. I think we are going to see some movement early and often in the 2025 NFL draft board. Whether that happens here soon or as we get closer to the NFL draft in that opening round on opening night, April 24th, that remains to be seen. But I do wonder, Donnie, with so much smoke this early on in a season known for its speculation and smoke screens, that the Titans are open to listening to calls, and they have already received plenty of them for that first overall selection. And we are getting the idea from Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, they will not go quietly into that dark night of their NFL future, that they are really making an emphasis to have a huge home run hit, if you will, in terms of that quarterback market. We shall see exactly what happens. A lot to be determined this weekend. You can bet that DRS will be posted on the back porch with his TV up and making sure he is watching all the combine drills that we will see today, Saturday, and Sunday as well.
I love it, too, because I'm going to hear guys' names I never heard of with people saying, like, ooh, this guy now jumped into the 5th round when I had him projected as a 7th rounder. Man, your projections don't mean anything at this point. You know when the projection is right? Sit back and watch at the draft. That's when things start to get real, not shorts and T-shirts. And did you see this guy's 3-cone drill? Love this player. Stop the madness, man.
So it is interesting, right? Because the athletic profile does match up with the game film and the tape that you see. As we often say, it cannot be the main piece of your evaluation tool. But, Donnie, I think every scouting department has questions about this individual at his size, at his stature, at his weight. Can he do this? Can he run like this? Can he do all these things? And there can be a couple of points of emphasis that move you up or down a draft board. We shall see this weekend. My hope is very soon, I feel like it often happens around Combine Week in Indianapolis, we get more markets out for the NFL draft. Right now, it's still just that first overall pick, the team to make it and the guy to go first overall. I want second. I want third. I want fourth. I want fifth, because it provides a better picture of when Abdul Carter might go and when Travis Hunter might be selected. Don't shake your head. You're a draft handicapping savant.
Anybody that's ever played football in their career, remember what your coaches said when you guys are running around just helmets on? Wait till we get the pads on to separate the men from the boys. Get this combine out of my life.
But, Donnie, as we get ready for the quarterbacks to enter the fold this weekend in Indianapolis, they will meet with teams. They are undergoing the interview process right now at the podium, and it still feels DRS. Although there will be some quarterbacks that certainly make their way up draft boards, at this moment, it might only really be a 2-quarterback class in the top 5, top 10, maybe the entirety of the opening round. It is Cam Ward, who is a minus 150 favorite to be the first overall selection, and out of Colorado, Shedeur Sanders.
Yep, and that's the way it should be here. 2 first-round quarterbacks. I believe both of those guys will go, and quarterbacks, needy teams will draft them, and overdraft them, we should say, in the top 10. And Cam Ward probably should go number 1 overall. I do agree with that, but some more smoke screens will come out over the draft, because also you're taking a look at if the Giants do make a move today for Matthew Stafford, that takes them out of the race, probably trading up to get a quarterback since they have Matthew Stafford. And that could change some of the dynamics and the price points that we're getting here at the FanDuel Sportsbook for the draft itself, just on moves that aren't actually made from the combine technically.
And we will see. We're not sure. Do we have any final confirmation, Joe Frizo, if Cam Ward is going to throw this weekend at the combine? I know it was up in the air earlier this week. I didn't hear that. We'll talk about it during the break, and we'll talk more NFL on the other side here on the early line. Still TBD if Cam Ward is going to throw tomorrow at the combine for the guy right now that is the odds-on favorite and projected number 1 overall pick. I would be surprised if Cam Ward does, as Donnie has highlighted. There's not a lot of benefit for throwing right now when you have the proven pedigree of what you have done, unless you are really trying to change the narrative or build up just some optimism and excitement for your draft profile and evaluation, which is always, Donnie, always the case. Even in a quarterback class that lacks a little bit of luster. 3 of the last 4 years, we have seen a generational talent that we knew would go off the board number 1 overall, or at least in the top 3. Trevor Lawrence in 2021, we had 5 quarterbacks in the top 15. Only 1 first-round pick in 2022 at the QB spot. That was Kenny Pickett. Then we had a ton in 2023 as well. Actually, only 3, but in the first 4, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. who was a combine marvel, and last year, the most in the modern draft era. Since the NFL went to 7 rounds firmly, annually, in 1994, we had 6 quarterbacks in the opening round for the first time ever, and 6 QBs in the top 12. That is the difference this year, DRS, between the 2024 draft class and 2025. Our QB class not nearly as strong. We're not entirely sure if we are going to see even 3 quarterbacks go in the first round, but a couple of names to monitor if that is going to be the case. Probably led by Jackson Dart at the top of that board.
Yeah, and the interesting part about that, too, is I only think there should be 2 first-round quarterbacks, but understand, the power of that, the Eagles actually drafting 32nd is interesting because you saw the Baltimore Ravens do it with Lamar Jackson. If you think you have a quarterback that is legitimate, that you have time to develop, there's a big difference when we're getting at the 32nd spot and the 33rd spot. And you might say, well, why is that? The first-round draft picks get the extra year put automatically onto their contract than the second-round picks do. So that 31, 32 spot here, watch out for that as a possible chance for a quarterback to go. And I'm not saying the Eagles are going to take a quarterback, let's just say the Kansas City Chiefs. But if you get somebody that's willing to give you an extra second-round pick just to move up a few spots to get that extra year of contract under the quarterback, those things could happen. So for me, I look at clear cut. There should be 2 first top 10 picks for the quarterback position, and then you might get one late in the first round. Not to say he's a true first rounder, but the extra year is worth it to some organizations.
At least right now, the rumor around the smokescreen season is that Jackson Dart could be that riser. And there is always a riser at the quarterback spot throughout every NFL draft cycle. We shall see. Jalen Milroe at times was flirting with first-round consideration and then had a terrible end of the year for Alabama. He has to go out there and prove he can be a consistent passer of the football. He'll throw tomorrow in Indianapolis. Kyle McCord had an ACC record-shattering season for the most passing yards ever, breaking the previous mark of Deshaun Watson. I think he might be the 3rd quarterback in this draft, but maybe I'm a little bit biased in believing so. Entering 2024 DRS, Quinn Ewers was thought of as a surefire first-round pick, probably top 10, top 5, maybe even in consideration for first overall.
Where's he projected?
Necessarily. What?
Where's he projected? Where's Quinn Ewers projected this year in the draft?
Day 2, maybe? Day 3, second, third, fourth round kind of pick?
Oh, that high? Oh, second rounder for Quinn? Maybe so. Because I was hoping you would say like a 5th or 6th round pick. Like if he goes 6th, then I go back. Arch couldn't be at a 6th round draft pick here. Come on now, Arch.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We already have the report out that Quinn Ewers was dealing with a torn abdominal muscle, not just an abdomen
still he couldn't beat him out.
Had been, previously reported. And Riley Leonard and Will Howard, the 2 guys that led their teams to a national championship game, but both kind of more so known for utilizing their legs, a little bit more of the athletic profile as a quarterback, both trying to prove they are a pure passer of the football as well tomorrow afternoon in Indy.
And by the way, those 2 last quarterbacks, the reason I was laughing, I thought you were going to go down the path like, which team would God want them to play for is probably one of the questions you're going to get asked at the podium. Like, you know what? God's going to lead me in the right direction. Both of those guys would agree to that at that point. I wonder, do they get drafted, those 2? Like, they're definitely going to be on football teams next year because they are athletic. But they were like draftable quarterbacks per se.
Maybe Riley.
How about one of the 2?
That would be my thought.
One of them's got to get drafted, right?
Yeah.
Like, come on, 6th round pick, 7th round pick. One of them has to go. All right.
That would be my guess. I mean, listen, we might only see 6 or 7 quarterbacks drafted in 2025. I'll crunch the numbers and find out the least amount of quarterbacks we have seen in an NFL draft in the last 2 decades or so. But, Donnie, we've got new markets available around the National Football League and on the lovely FanDuel Sportsbook. Coach of the Year odds are now available. And no surprise at the top, Ben Johnson is that favorite at an 8-1 number, followed by Mike Vrabel in a new spot at 10-1, but his 7th year as an NFL head coach on the horizon. And Liam Cohen, of course, the rookie head coach in Jacksonville, a 10-1 number as well. Your reaction? Come on, man. What are we thinking, DRS, when you look at those Coach of the Year numbers?
We got to separate the award. It needs to be like rookie newcomer of the year and then coach of the year, which is actually the best coach. Because the thing I get a kick out of is you see coach of the year and you don't see the best coaches in the NFL in coach of the year. Think of it this way, guys. MVP voting in basketball where you list none of the good players and just all of the young talent up top. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know how you vote on this award except by saying, give me a bad football team last year with a young coach, and if they maybe make the playoffs, they're the best coach of the season. I don't buy into this stuff. So it might be the worst market that you can bet into because there are no defined boundaries on what anybody's looking for. Like, hey, Nick Sirianni gets no look here. Or how about Andy Reid? No look here. Bill Belichick for no look for the past 5 or 6 years that he was actually winning Super Bowls. I don't get it.
Yeah, Donnie, you're so right. It's defying expectation. I would say that is the defined boundary that we have in NFL Coach of the Year. But everybody thinks that's a first-year head coach. That is a rookie head coach. It's great if that rookie head coach makes the franchise better and they win 8 games when they had a win total of 5.5. But if they're not a playoff team, it doesn't mean diddly squat. In the last 8 years, we have seen 4 first-time head coaches win this award, but all 4 led their teams to a playoff berth. We'll talk a little bit more about those odds and offensive and defensive player of the year numbers now out. FanDuel Sportsbook notes the Football Friday next. What was the update about Cam Ward at the Combine? Was it shared from a Starbucks in downtown Indianapolis?
It was from the hottest beat writer on the circuit out there in Indy. Jordan Schultz says Miami quarterback and projected top pick Cam Ward will officially not throw at the NFL Combine in Indy. Quote tweeted by Ian Rappaport saying like, oh no, he's throwing. So there you go. That's wouldn't that be good? That should be the next tweet right now. Yes.
We need to open up. Friezo, start a fake Ian Rappaport account with 2 P's to start off Rappaport. Tweet that out.
Ian Rappaport.
Go viral. The early line has done something right there. Donnie, that was really quick on your feet, man.
Yeah.
Really well done. Maybe Ian Rappaport with 2 P's becomes SportsGrid's NFL insider. Well, no, we have Adam Kaplan. Adam Kaplan with 2 P's?
I mean,
all right,
I'm telling you, Joe Lisi sends me DMs from Adam Schlechter accounts all the time falling for stuff. So you never know. People believe a lot. They'll believe it.
DRS. I got a great story for you doing the commercial break about some big NFL news.
Commercial?
Actually, no, we'll just fire it off. You know, a great and loyal SportsGrid viewer, our guy Jordan Penseal. He always is tuned in to what we are doing across the Spiz Grizz. Lisi and I on FFC earlier in the week were talking, of course, about Matthew Stafford, basically with a daily update in this saga and now sweepstakes. Lisi sends me a Jordan Penseal tweet. I'm thinking, what could this possibly be? It was a Jordan Penseal quote tweet of an NFL aggregator account about the Rams saying they are comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo if Matthew Stafford is moved. So instead of sending me the actual update, he sent me the quote tweet from a great SportsGrid listener and follower in Jordan Penseal, not just the actual update. And I believe it was our guy, Jordan Penseal, big Niners fan, being like, San Fran is comfortable with Jimmy G as the starter in L.A. as well.
Yeah, exactly. So and by the way, just to cut down another Joe Lease, like when he screenshots stuff, I don't actually know what the screenshot is for because it encapsulates the entire phone and multiple comments. So I always like to pick the least comment that he's probably talking about. So like, I don't understand this, just to get him going there. So a little behind the scenes on what we have have here at the SportsGrid Network. Yeah.
Always good. One final look at the Coach of the Year odds, and then we'll get to OPOY and DPOY as well. Just to highlight Donnie's point. There is not really a rhyme or reason, thus not really a handicap for how the Coach of the Year is determined. Our last 8 winners, half of them have been a rookie head coach. You see those first 4 guys on the board. Now, Vrabel, not a rookie head coach, but in a first spot, taking over a bad Patriots team, so he would get that bump if New England has a winning record this year, despite the fact that Vrabel won Coach of the Year in 2021. But half of the last 8 winners have been a first-year head coach. All 4 of those winners of the Coach of the Year award have led their team to the playoffs. Thus, it's not just a rookie head coach going into Jacksonville like Liam Cohen, making Trevor Lawrence look great, but the Jags finished 9-8 and on the outside of the AFC playoff picture, and you're like, great job, Liam. You just won this award. No, if you are a rookie head coach, your team needs to get to the playoffs. Who won it this past year? That would be Kevin O'Connell. Who won it the year prior to that? That would be Kevin Stefanski. Why? Because they took backup quarterbacks or reserve quarterbacks and made them look sensational. But that's not something you can bet or expect entering a season. So it's very difficult to find the value there. And as Donnie said, maybe the best head coach that leads a team to a 14-3 record, even though they were expected to do just that, they don't get the benefit of the doubt or the nod in the Coach of the Year award.
No, they don't. Like Andy Reid's like 11-time Coach of the Year since he started back in the late 1990s. Like Bill Belichick should have 10 Coach of the Year awards. It's just funny how it's talked about and how it's actually worded here, because you're right. It basically says new head coach in a bad situation that bails out said team. But you have to understand this as well. There's a reason why new head coaches are coming in here. It's the bottom level here. So half of them are going to just try to restart the franchise. But the others, the NFL helps you out. You get the best first-round draft pick if you're a bad football team. You get the easiest schedule to line up. So it's in your favor to actually win these awards because, hey, last year didn't work so good. The NFL helps you out. We win 2 more games. Oh, you're a great coach. No, that's why all these young coaches are winning it in first years, because it's easy to see, like, well, why are you here? Not because we just came off the Super Bowl. I'm here because we won 3 games last year. Whoa, you won 7 the next year. What a great coach. Yeah. Not necessarily.
You know what is kind of funny, though? 6 of the 8 best prices are 6 of our 7 new head coaches hired in this offseason.
Yeah.
The only guy who is not on that board in the top 10 or in the top 8, that would be Brian Schottenheimer, the new head man in Dallas, at a 23-1 number, tied for the 11th best price. The Player of the Year award odds on both offense and defense now available for the 2025 NFL season on the FanDuel Sportsbook. And the guy who won Offensive Player of the Year this previous season is the favorite to do it once again. Plus 850 alongside Jamar Chase, who also had a Triple Crown record-setting season, but Saquon Barkley, in his hunt for history in more than 2,000 rushing yards, got the job done. Plus 850 for both of them. The last repeat winner, DRS, of the OPOY was Marshall Faulk as a part of the greatest show on turf in 1999. 3 consecutive years through 2001. Jahmyr Gibbs at 12-1, Justin Jefferson 13-1, and Derrick Henry a 16-1 price round out the top 5.
Yeah, it's crazy to see Marshall Faulk, and kids today don't understand how good Marshall Faulk actually was in college football and in the pros. He was the absolute ultimate weapon, the showman of all showmen here, which, again, a running back winning 3 straight years is crazy to think about. Now, you do see Saquon Barkley, the plus 850 price. I do believe he should be right up there at the top. But we understand. Look, I'm an Eagles fan. I would love next year for him to run for 2,000 yards, be completely healthy the whole year. But the running back position takes a lot of pain. And I know how hard Saquon Barkley works, but it's not as if it's like, hey, you know what? He's been in the league 6 or 7 years, never missed any games. He missed a lot of time with the New York Giants. We're not predicting he's going to miss a lot of time next year, but had a lot of usage in this past year heading to the Super Bowl, which not only means, Ben, 17 regular season games, extra playoff games, which was 3, and then the Super Bowl, which means 4. Hopefully he gets a lot of rest time. But for me, I actually would love to see him win it. I would not be betting Saquon Barkley to win Offensive Player of the Year. And also understand this. Winning it 1 year and then going to the next, we know that that's perceived. I like Chase. I think Gibbs is legitimate. Justin Jefferson with a new quarterback, I'm not there. And I'm not taking Derrick Henry. So I do think we have a nice wide open market. But just of those players listed up top, I'm probably always going to lead towards Jamar Chase. They're going to pay him. He's going to be happy. They're going to use him. Their defense is going to be bad. And I think there's a legitimate chance that he could win that this year.
A contract year for Jamar Chase in 2024. And again, had a Triple Crown season. Most receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and receptions, leading all of the NFL in those 3 categories this season. We expect him to be paid this offseason. We'll see if it actually happens and what that would mean for Jamar Chase. By the way, Christian McCaffrey, who won the award in 2023, a 30-1 price to win it this year. Shortest price for a quarterback would be Lamar Jackson at 40-1, alongside Josh Allen, both at a plus 4,000 number. Last QB to win Offensive Player of the Year, Patrick Mahomes, in 2018. They try to give it to a non-quarterback an Offensive Player of the Year because a quarterback always wins the MVP award. Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett at 7-1. Aiden Hutchinson coming back from injury at plus 850 alongside Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, and Max Crosby, a 10-1 number. Our rating DPOY, that would be Patrick Surtain II of Denver, the cornerback, 45-1 number, 14th shortest. Surtain, it should be noted, one of 2 defensive backs to win this award in the last decade. So it's kind of an upset when a DB wins it, oftentimes a pass rusher and a defensive lineman.